We're going back to the 1980s to discuss the how we got here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the neoliberal revolution, so-called. It used to be called economic rationalism. That was a term given back in the 1990s, and some of the words to describe that are a little bit inaccurate as posited by mainstream journalists. These were described as being a consensus option, but the consensus was only between the Liberal Party and the Labor Party. Hawke, the Hawke years 83 to 91, especially the first sort of couple of terms, there was a consensus between the Labor and the Liberal Party, and maybe a few economists and NGOs, think tanks, elite think tanks. But there was no consensus among the general population. In fact, these were deeply unpopular. I mean, really deeply unpopular and hated by the majority of the population. The vast majority of people were antagonistic to this. And to describe it as a consensus option, the economic rationalism of the 80s and the 90s, neoliberalism, whatever you call it, is completely wrong. And it's a real bugbear of mine that they speak this way. There was never any consensus outside of the political elite on this. In fact, it was imposed against the general will. And I think there's some benefits to that. The whole thing, lots of things became cheaper, and there's a lot of trades, there's a lot more currency trading. The GDP did rise eventually. There was a lot of trouble though. High interest rates, high unemployment at various times, property crash. There's a lot of adjustment to be made, and it was very unpopular, and it just did cause a lot of angst for the general population. And it did eventually really destroy the Labor Party, who were implementing that. The last 20 years, 24 years, I'd say, 25 years, 1996 since Howard won. And it was really bad for the Labor Party, and they've really struggled since. They essentially sort of damaged their own brand amongst sort of working class, sort of a few lower middle class people too, that they need to get on board to get over the line in elections. So they suffered the most. They implemented this and they suffered really badly, and they're still suffering the effects of it. They can only sort of run on Medicare, scare campaigns on Medicare and tweaking that, a few little things, but they really have done themselves in, and they've done a lot of damage to the nature of the country, the sort of people that inhabit it. It's made, I think, a little bit more callous, sociopathic. Other people have noted that, but I think they really did destroy themselves, and they really only have themselves to blame.